What if the expansion of Britain's cities depended not on grand design, but on something as simple as mud? Not rare, not valuable in itself, but everywhere. Because at the height of industrial growth, Britain was built not just with ambition, but with clay. Welcome to the making of Britain. By the time Britain entered the Industrial Revolution, the need for building materials had become urgent. Towns were expanding, populations were increasing, and industry was drawing people into new urban centres. Stone, while durable, was not always available in the quantities required, and transporting it remained costly. Beneath much of Britain, however, lay another material, clay. Formed over millions of years from fine sediments, it was widespread, accessible, and adaptable. It did not need to be quarried in the same way as stone. It could be dug, shaped, and transformed into something more durable. This made it an ideal material for a rapidly changing society. Clay on its own is soft, malleable, easily shaped, but when fired at high temperatures, it becomes brick, strong, uniform, and capable of being produced in large quantities. This transformation was not new, but during the industrial period, it became central. Brickmaking could be scaled, it could be organised, it could respond to demand in ways that earlier materials could not. Kilns were established close to sources of clay, often on the edges of expanding towns. The process linked raw material to finished product in a relatively direct way. The ground beneath the city was quite literally turned into the city itself. In some areas, the availability of clay was particularly significant. Beneath much of southern England lies London clay, a thick deposit that proved well suited to brickmaking. As London expanded, this resource became increasingly important. Bricks could be produced locally, reducing the need for long-distance transport and enabling rapid construction. The characteristic appearance of London, its terraces, its uniform streets, reflects this material. The colour, the texture, even the scale of development were influenced by what lay beneath the surface. As you're still working with me, can I ask you to drop me a like? It helps more than you imagine, thanks. One of the key advantages of brick was its uniformity. Unlike stone, which varied in shape and size, bricks could be produced to consistent dimensions. This allowed for faster construction, more predictable building methods, and the possibility of large-scale developments. Rows of houses, factories, and public buildings could be constructed using the same basic unit. The standardisation was not just a technical detail, it shaped the form of cities, creating patterns that are still visible today. The repetition of brick structures became a defining feature of industrial Britain. At this point, it's worth considering how materials influence the character of a place. When you look at a city built largely from brick, does it feel uniform, or does it reveal variation within that uniformity? And how much do you think materials used in construction shape the identity of a place over time? Share your thoughts in the comments, because the relationship between material and identity is central to this story. The growth of brick making was closely tied to the expansion of industry and population. As more people moved into towns and cities, the demand for housing increased. Factories required buildings, infrastructure needed to be developed, and urban areas expanded outwards. Clay deposits near cities became sites of intense activity, supplying the materials needed for construction. This created a direct link between geology and urban growth. The availability of clay did not just support expansion, it made it possible at the scale required. Like other resource-based industries, brickmaking created its own communities and patterns of work. Labourers dug clay, shaped bricks, operated kilns, and transported finished materials. These activities were often seasonal, influenced by weather conditions and demand. The work could be physically demanding, but it was essential to the functioning of the industrial city. The people involved in this process were not always visible in the final structures, but their labour was embedded in every wall, every street, every building that emerged. By the way, if you subscribe, there's a whole back catalogue of videos similar to this for you to enjoy. From a modern perspective, the reliance on brick might appear repetitive or limiting, but at the time it was the most practical solution. Clay was abundant, bricks were relatively easy to produce, and the methods could be scaled to meet demand. The alternative, relying on stone or other materials, would have been slower, more expensive, and less adaptable. The decisions made were shaped by necessity. They reflected the conditions of rapid urbanisation and the need for efficient construction. Brick was not chosen for its aesthetic alone, it was chosen because it worked. The cities built during this period have endured. The brick terraces, the industrial buildings, the infrastructure. Much of it remains in use or has been adapted for new purposes. The material has proven durable, capable of lasting far beyond its original context. This continuity shapes how Britain's cities are experienced today. The past is not just remembered, it's lived in, built into the fabric of everyday life. The choice of material, made for practical reasons, has had lasting consequences. Clay is not rare. It does not carry the same sense of value as metals or fuels, and yet its impact has been profound. It enabled the construction of cities, supported industrial growth, and provided the physical framework for modern Britain. It's a reminder that not all transformative resources are dramatic. Some are ordinary, widespread, and easily overlooked, but in the right context, they become essential. If Britain's cities were built from something as simple as clay, what does that suggest about the relationship between resources and development? How much of what we see as urban identity is shaped by the materials that made it possible? And what happens when those materials change? YouTube has chosen this video especially for you because you've watched this. Watch it next, I'm sure you'll enjoy it. If you ding the bell, you'll be notified when episodes are published, so you don't miss any. Thanks for walking a little further down the road that built Britain with me. Bye.